Good morning. Welcome back to the Southern Bible Thumper channel. For this upload, we will be reading Deuteronomy chapter 30 from the King James Version. I don't believe you have to read from the King James. It's just a tradition. And with Bible Ref is able to translate into 7, including the King James. Still working out which one I'm going to use all the time, but I probably will be using King James. Okay, chapter 30. And it shall come to pass, when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations, whither the Lord thy God hath driven thee, and shalt return unto the Lord thy God, and shalt obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day, thou and thy children, with all thine heart and with all thy soul. That then the Lord thy God will turn thy captivity, and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations, whither the Lord thy God hath scattered thee. If any of thine be driven out unto the outmost parts of heaven, from thence will the Lord thy God gather thee, and from thence will he fetch thee. And the Lord thy God will bring thee into the land which thy fathers possessed, and thou shalt possess it. And he will do thee good, and multiply thee above thy fathers. And the Lord thy God will circumcise thine heart, and the heart of thy seed, to love the Lord thy God with all thine heart, and with all thy soul, that thou mayest live. And the Lord thy God will put all these curses upon thine enemies, and on them that hate thee, which persecuted thee. And thou shalt return and obey the voice of the Lord, and do all his commandments which I command thee this day. And the Lord thy God will make thee plenteous in every work of thine hand, in the fruit of thy body, and in the fruit of thy cattle, and in the fruit of thy land for good. For the Lord will again rejoice over thee for good, as he rejoiced over thy fathers. If thou shalt hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes, which are written in this book of the law, and if thou turn unto the Lord thy God with all thine heart and with all thy soul, for this commandment which I command thee this day, it is not hidden from thee, neither is it far off. It is not in heaven, that thou shouldest say, Who shall go up for us to heaven, and bring it unto us, that we may hear it and do it? Neither is it beyond the sea, that thou shouldest say, Who shall go over the sea for us, and bring it to us, that we may hear it and do it? But the word is very nigh unto thee, in thy mouth and in thy heart, that thou mayest do it. See, I have set before thee this day life and good, and death and evil. In that I command thee this day to love the Lord thy God, to walk in his ways, and to keep his commandments and his statutes and his judgments, that thou mayest live and multiply. And the Lord thy God shall bless thee in the land whither thou goest to possess it. But if thine heart turn away, so that thou wilt not hear, but shalt be drawn away and worship other gods and serve them, I denounce unto you this day that ye shall surely perish, and that ye shall not prolong your days upon the land, whither thou passest over Jordan to go to possess it. I call heaven and earth to record this day against you, that I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore choose life, that both thou and thy seed may live, that thou mayest love the Lord thy God, and that thou mayest obey his voice, and that thou mayest cleave unto him, for he is thy life and the length of thy days, that thou mayest dwell in the land which the Lord sware unto thy fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to give them. Summarizing Deuteronomy chapter 30. Moses continues his farewell address to the second generation of Israel. This is to give them a foundation to build their new kingdom once they enter Canaan. So again, Moses is speaking. He's the only one speaking in the book of Deuteronomy until now. I have only read until chapter 30. Verse 1. The cursings and the blessings that are mentioned here, this is a reference to Deuteronomy chapter 28. And in that chapter, Moses details extensively the blessings and curses that Israel will experience if they do not honor God once they are in Canaan. Deuteronomy chapter 29 reemphasizes the curses in Deuteronomy 28, and emphasizes that their story will be public and they will be referred to as a warning story if they don't choose to honor God's laws and instead endure the punishments that are listed in Deuteronomy chapter 28. So if they fall and they don't honor those commands, they will be a public story, a pariah. Verse 1 begins, when the blessings or curses come to pass, if you're living scattered among nations, again, a reference to Deuteronomy 28, one of the punishments will be that they will be scattered among nations instead of living together in their own territory that they can control. If you're living scattered across nations as the result of the curses of your punishment, verses 2 to 3, God will restore you if you return back to obeying God's commands. He will gather you from your scattered locations, even if you're in the most distant of lands. Verse 4, God will bring you into the land your ancestors possessed so it can be yours. God will make you prosperous and heal your heart so that you'll have a posture towards Him to love Him fully. Verse 7, your blessings at your hard work, the blessings of your hard work, your children, and your cattle increase will be at the delight or the favor from God. So your blessings, your hard work, your children, the fruit of your womb, and the cattle increase will be done with favor or with delight from God. The same delight that your ancestors had. God will give you favor when you obey God's voice sincerely. Verse 11. This command is not unreasonable or too difficult for you to achieve. It is not in the heaven or beyond the sea where you'll have difficulty hearing it. Verses 12 through 13. Okay, verse 12 through 13, it's not too difficult for you to do it. It's not too far. It's not beyond the sea in the heavens. Verse 14, the word is very near, in your heart, in your mouth, that you can do it. It is not above your capabilities or beyond your capabilities to be able to complete the task that God is asking you to do. Verse 15, today I've presented you with life and goodness, death and evil. Choosing obedience to God by keeping His commands will lead you to having long life and increase in the land that He promised you. Verse 17, if you don't obey and you go worship other gods, you will perish. You will not live long in Canaan. So it does say here the land promised to you. Verse 17, if you don't obey God, you will perish and you will not live long in the land that you're going over the Jordan to enter and possess. The land that is promised to Israel that they are about to go into after Moses passes away, because in Numbers chapter 27, God tells Moses, because of your disobedience, you're not going to go into Canaan either, even though you sacrificed your life to lead these people. But the way that we know that this land is Canaan, Numbers chapter 32, verses 30 through 32, Numbers chapter 33, verse 51, and Numbers chapter 34, verse 2. So Numbers 32, 33, 34 all reference Canaan specifically as the land that Israel will enter into. Verse 19, heaven and earth are witnesses that I have explained the conditions of you receiving life or death, blessings or curses. Choose life as the better option for you and your offspring. Verse 20, loving God, obeying His voice is what will determine the longevity and the quality of your existence. Choosing Him will allow you to remain in the land promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Moses clarifies the nuance of how God will restore Israel, even if they choose not to honor God, by explaining that if you begin to experience the curses in Deuteronomy 28, God will fully restore you if you return to honoring God sincerely and keeping His commands. We should be really excited because Deuteronomy is only 34 chapters. So we only have 4 more chapters to read before we are in the next book. And the next book is Joshua. Joshua is also going to be a short chapter. So we will finally get a different perspective because Moses is going to die at the end of this book. And Joshua is the anointed young leader that is going to be Moses' successor. So we are going to start getting into something juicy, hopefully, because I am ready to read about someone else other than Moses and the Israelites. Thank you so much for clicking on the video. I love you. Have a wonderful day.